We all have a story to tell. Some are just beginning, others have been unfolding for years. Welcome to the Shaman Stories Podcast. Each week, I sit down with guests to explore their journeys into spirit, the challenges, awakenings, and the moments that shaped who they are today. So take a breath, settle in, and join me as we uncover the stories that lead us back to our true selves. Welcome to the Shaman Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Chimvert, and today's guest is Indra Rinzler. He's a lifelong student and teacher of spirituality, Vedic astrology, and the Enneagram of Personality. For over 50 years, he has explored the deeper questions of human nature and consciousness, helping people wake up to who they truly are through life readings, teachings, and personal guidance. Thanks for being here today, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Is there, before we kind of dive into your past and your journey, is there anything else you want people to know about what you do today?
Well, the main thing is that the first book is out, Indra's Net, Seeker's Guide to the Human Experience. I think it's a pretty good book. It's meant to be a friend. It's something you sit with for a while. It will teach you, and just by reading it, you will grow and change because by knowing what we don't know, we learn and grow.
I would agree 100% with that. I once took a course and they did a big pie chart and they were like, this little piece right here is what you know you know. This other medium-sized piece is what you don't know. And then the rest of it's everything you don't know that you don't know. And it's
Yeah,
like, more than three-fourths of that pie chart.
absolutely.
So I want to kind of dive into a little bit of how you got to where you're at. So what was your childhood like? Did you have parents or family members who were down this spiritual path too? Were you kind of the black sheep or the oddball of the family, if you will?
Uh, Probably all of those. I mean, my parents died when I was in my early 20s, so I got a lot of freedom. And um, I wouldn't say that they were spiritual, but I would say that now we're talking 50s, the 1950s. But I would say that they were looking for something new. You know how this phase in spirituality is you're looking, you
Yep.
don't well, you just say what you know, what you don't know. You know that it's something, but you don't know what it is. And so I think they were breaking they gave me a lot of freedom because they were breaking loose of family and society patterns, but it wasn't developed enough to know what it was. So I could call it spirituality, but it was never broached in that way. But the fact is that I could see that that's what it was, with really clear hindsight in its own way. I have a theory that most people kind of like this, that there's the general theory is that you're either on the path or you're not, the spiritual path or you're not. And I can contend is that the difference is that you either know you're on the spiritual path or you don't know you're on the spiritual path. But I don't think not being on the spiritual path is one of the options.
Yeah, and I guess because I know that's with at least my own journey was I never planned on learning shamanism or going into, energy work or anything like that. And it just kept popping up and it just kept popping up and things were going bad and my life was in turmoil and I didn't understand what was going on until I finally went, okay, let me see what this is about, and actually accepted what was being shown to me. And I think that's with a lot of people, and even in the shamanic terms, it's like they call it the shaman sickness, where it's like you have to have some big upheaval in your life. Usually it's like an
Uh,
illness and then it miraculously gets cured. I personally think at this point, at least in our civilization, it's not always about an illness. It could just be everything's just falling apart. It's just everything's just going to crap basically, and you don't understand why. and then it's figuring out the why and working through it, and then you go through that and start that journey.
Yeah, what's falling apart is the stuff that isn't real. So it's not actually falling apart. It's that you're starting to see through the haze, the purple haze, as Jimi Hendrix might call it. You're starting to see through the fact that there is a lack of integrity in modern society, in quote unquote modern society. That it's not really how we want to live, and it's not a natural way to live. And I'm talking about this the mainstream in a very general way, that it's uh, whether it's too focused on money, or it's doesn't take care of the sensitive one inside, or that it's so fast that it doesn't seem very real, and that you don't have time to really to be happy or to explore the things that you want to explore. The fact is that it's supposed to fall apart because it's held up by what is it? The three pigs had a wood house, a straw house, a wood house, and a brick house. You got to get to that brick house, not the straw house. The straw house meaning your life based on being nasty to other people, or taking advantage of other people, or not being honest about to yourself, or whatever it is. That falling apart is the beautiful part of life.
Yeah, it doesn't feel beautiful when you're going through it, but once you come out of
No,
it, yeah.
no, that's part of the setup, is
Mhm.
that what is beautiful, and what is it that you really want, that you have to
No,
seek out. You have to seek out answers to those questions in this complex life that we have so many choices, that we have to learn to make the better choice, not the right choice, but a better choice.
I guess with that, I want to follow that thread in a second, but one thing I was curious about, since you mentioned, you've been doing this for over 50 years, have you seen at least I guess the right way to frame it is like a conscious shift in people starting to discover all these things, to discover that, hey, we don't want to live like this anymore. We do want to change. We want to go back maybe to the quote unquote old ways. Do you see
Sure.
spirituality over the 50 years has been,
Oh, well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like moment to moment, we talk about going back to India every year, and every year it's different. And the 8 months since I've been there, it totally changes. And it's not about India. It's just the fact that the absolutely the in the early 70s. The word, well, natural foods. Natural foods isn't really a term so much anymore, but natural foods was sort of the way to start looking at non-mainstream ways. And natural, we noticed that the word natural became much more and more mainstream. And now in any kind of an ad, wherever it appears, natural will be used. It may not be totally natural, but they will use the word, and the natural foods part has dropped, but just the natural or healthy or conscious. I mean, these things are. I used to talk about the word karma. When we first heard the word karma in 1970, we would say, "Well, what is that?" And then 6 months later, after using it, then you'd say, karma, it's your karma," and somebody would say, "What are you talking about?" And it's like karma now is like mainstream TV sitcoms.
yeah,
I can't think of anybody right now, but I mean. What is it? Two and a half boys or two and a half men?
yeah, Two and a Half
If you
Men, I
remember
think it is,
that. I
yeah.
mean, he could say karma anymore, and nobody would question it. That's how far it has come.
Yeah, even on the natural food thing, I was in the supermarket the other day and saw a bag of chips and it's like made with real potato chips. I'm like, well, what was it made with before? It should always be made with real
I
potatoes.
don't I don't know if those. Ripples. What is the one with the? I'm not sure that that's real food. The one in the cans with the
Pringles.
Pringles. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the isn't. I don't know that that's real potatoes or real anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say with half the food that's out there now. If I always
But
tell
the
people,
point is how
yeah,
much it's changed, and not only that, but it's all over the world. I used to talk about how yoga, yoga. When I first went to Rishikesh in India, where I go in the winter, there was the only yoga was in the old ashram, one of the few ashrams that was still there. Now there are, I don't know how many, 20 yoga schools, 50 yoga schools all over the little town. And yoga, there isn't any place you can go in the world that they don't do yoga. On the most bizarre place that you could imagine, there's probably a yoga center there because they've come to Rishikesh. I have a friend who's a well-known teacher there, and his dad told me that he had 87 students for a month, and they were from 43 different countries.
jeez.
I mean, I don't even know how you can get 43 different countries and 87 people, but somehow they did, and that's what I see, that that it's exploded all over the world, and does it have the same meaning? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't really matter. It's where they're starting, but the desire for healthy, and the desire to meditate, and the desire to whether it's know God, or find peace, or find my true purpose. This is spirituality. It's a little bit wrapped up in ego, but it's on the path. I mean, everything is on the path, but it's part of that progression that we naturally do, is to like that you expressed really clearly, is that it isn't working. It's working, and then the realization that it isn't working, and then is the what is it that I need to do, and what's the direction, and then it comes. It comes as we're open. It comes as we search, and as that we become more aware, to find out that it was already there. That the answer, it's the Dorothy and Oz, that you already had the way to go back to Kansas. But we couldn't tell you because you wouldn't have listened to us.
Yeah, that is true.
So what is it? 1908, 1897 book, where this hidden truth was you already had it in the shoes. Just click your heels together three. Well, why didn't you tell me before? Because you wouldn't have understood it and heard it then. Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, I see that a lot too, where it's like you can explain it to them, but and tell them all these things, but until they actually go through it and see it for themselves, it's
Yeah.
just a whole different meaning. Because you can talk to somebody all day about spirituality, being one, all coming from the source, energy, how, and it'll just fly over people's head because it's, oh, that's just science fiction, or that's just made up, or I don't believe in God, or I'm an atheist, this or that. And then when they actually start going down that journey, then they're like, oh, these things are real. We can do these things. We can manipulate our lives in a way that is more impactful for us and others around us. And sometimes it just takes these little moments of just clarity, or even validation, I would say, where it just, then you're like, okay, this is right. Let me keep going and keep going and keep going.
Yeah, you have to get enough pain in order to be willing to listen to the inner heart, and to get out of the mind, to get out of the thinking that I can't, or it isn't, or it won't.
And with that going on your own journey, were there moments where, I guess, what was the starting
There are
point
still
for you?
moments.
Yeah, that's true.
Whatever the question is, there are still moments.
But what was the starting point for you to go down this path fully? I mean, you mentioned going to India every year now, working with the yoga.
Yeah,
Were
well,
there
that's
other
25,
things?
that's 25 years. That's the last 25 years. I just think that, well, I mentioned that my parents had died when I was early, so I
Mhm.
had the freedom and I moved to California in 1970, I believe, and it was very new and different, and spirituality and natural foods and new ways of life. Well, maybe not new, maybe new ways of life isn't the right way to say that. Let me say that a little bit better. New understandings of life and new things, California dreaming, we all Monday, I mean, we all heard it in the late 60s, I remember being called when Disneyland started and the Disney programs on Sunday night. Walt Disney was still alive and used to come on 1955, the Mouseketeers with
Yeah.
Funicello, 1955. We were already wanting to go to California, and then I grew up in New York, and then my two of my baseball teams moved to California in 1958. I mean, it was a promised land. It may not have the same promise today. I still live in California, but coming here, there was just a different. There was something different. What is that old beer commercial? It's in the water. There was something different in California. There
Yeah.
was there was new ways of thinking, and whether it was rock and roll or drugs or spirituality. I saw Ram Dass speak. I think
Oh, wow.
1971 or 72 in Berkeley. I mean, it wasn't happening in the East Coast or the Midwest at that time, but now it's all over the world.
Yeah, I've seen some of his recordings, but yeah, to be able to see him in person would have been a really cool experience for sure.
Yeah, it was so new and we were just exploring what it meant, taking it day by day without any structure. So I was looking for something, I suppose. I had the opportunity to explore what made me happy. I don't remember how I used to say it with the words back then, but the words were kind of like, what would make me happy? Who am I really? What's life about? There was something in the air that I heard that made me want to go deeper. And I can't say that any of my old friends understood it, and even some of my first California friends didn't really get it in the same way. So, I started on a path of which, I didn't know it was a path, and I didn't know what I was looking for, and I'm still not very willing to define. I can define it better, but it's more about the open to what comes rather than having an expectation.
Okay, oh, and that makes sense, and that's totally valid and fair. Some people have specific, I need to fix this problem type thing. Some people just kind of flow into where they're at, and there's no right or wrong with either way. I'm always just curious how people get started, right? Because that's really what this podcast was originally for. Was I kept having people coming up to me saying, "Well, what should I do with my life? What should I do with this?" And I'm like, I don't know. I can show you shamanism. I don't know all these other modalities and tools and techniques out there. I would suggest you get a couple books from the library, see what you resonate with, watch some podcasts, find someone or a teaching or a modality that you're like, oh no, that sounds cool. I want to try that. And go try it and see if that works for you. And your life purpose doesn't necessarily have to be a straight up energy healing modality where you're going to save the planet. It could just be being a very good mom, being the mom that you didn't have, or being the dad you didn't have, or, taking care of people in your neighborhood. It doesn't always have to be this larger than life plan and make a business and
Yeah.
all these other things. Life's
It
purpose
doesn't
could,
it doesn't mean it's a million followers.
yeah, exactly. It's just what can you bring to those around you and to
That's just
yourself?
that's just the latest noise.
Yeah.
Needing a
Exactly.
million followers is just the latest noise that we have to deal with, the distraction. Absolutely, yeah. There's no other way but then to notice the stones in your path and then turn them over and see what's underneath.
Yes. And so I was looking around on your site, and I'm actually curious about I might be saying it wrong, but the Enneagram of
Yeah, you did
Personality.
that really well. Yeah.
Okay.
Enneagram. Yeah. Nine personality types. One of them is at our core. It is from birth to death. It is our core strategy. It's in our, I can see it in people's astrology charts. And so we're born with it. There are nine personality stories. And it's why when humanity sits around the table of life, we have different thoughts. You know, the cartoons of that she's thinking of trying to get out of here, and he's thinking that she really likes me. You know, I
Hmm.
mean, it's like everybody's got their own kind of story going. So the Enneagram is, and I'm happy to go through the nine stories, but the way that it works is that each story has an incredible amount of patterning, and we're concerned about different issues. We're concerned about different parts of life, and it's why some people are very detail oriented, and some people are particularly creative, and some people are have trouble showing up and not knowing themselves. And each of these personality stories and they're incredibly interesting, and it's an incredible tool to know ourselves better and to understand the people around us better. I know when I started, I didn't really understand other people particularly well. I got the Enneagram. I used to talk about that. I didn't re My wife and I, my ex-wife and I, we loved each other, but we didn't really understand each other until at the end, after 25 years, we got the Enneagram, and then we understood each other, and then we split up. But that was all part of the process. Is sometimes at the end, like it would be wonderful to find thus ended and thus began. So you have the opportunity, the next relationship, that the first relationship wasn't necessarily about being totally honest and or being totally clear. It could just be love, but the reality of it is that we grow, and then we take that into the next situation. I used to, when I was giving astrology readings, and I would think afterwards, oh, I wish I'd have told them that. I learned to let go of that thought and just tell the next person that I felt that if I told the next person when the same thing came up, I should have told them that I don't know, that they needed to meditate 30 minutes a day. Oh, darn, maybe I should write them. Well, I learned not to write, and I learned to just tell the next person when it came up and I felt clear. I felt the clarity that in telling the next person, the first person would also hear it. That I was cleaning the karma, as it were, that I was putting it out, which was the most important thing. It wasn't so much that the first person could hear it, but it was more about by my ability to be able to come to it and say it. I don't know if that makes total sense, but that's what I've learned
Okay.
for myself.
And so with those nine stories, if I'm understanding correctly, it's a way for you to just get deeper understanding of who you are. And these stories are kind of tied in with astrology, where the planets, when they're out at a
Well,
certain time.
the planets will give you a flavor of will set up the conditions for this particular story, but it's not actually who you are, it's who you think you are, this story. And so the idea, let me give you a little bit of let me get more specific. So there are three core instincts. That's anger, emotion, and fear. And while we have all three of them in us, one of them is at our core. Now, aside from that, there are three reactions to energy coming toward us. There are those that go outward to it, they are more extroverted. There are those that go inward, they're introverted. And there are those that live in a middle path of observing before behavior. And so you have anger, inward is the one. They're the perfectionist. Um, they need everything around them to be perfect. They have a specific idea about how things should be. It's changeable. They totally make it up, but their insecurity about themselves, they're feeling a lack of adequacy in themselves creates a world where they want everything to be perfect around them, and they can be they at their core they're very frustrated and and resentful of life because it's never perfect. Okay, so then the outward anger is the eight. They're the boss, the most assertive type. Jack Nicholson is an eight personality, and so they dominate. They are very confident and can bully and push on people. Very the most dominant personality there is. The neutral, the observe in the middle is the nine. This is the for anger. This is the peacemaker that they disengage from themselves. They accommodate other people. They feel a disconnection, and so they disconnect from themselves. They don't actually know themselves very well. So those are the three anger types, and there are kinds of things that if you say, well, I'm needy, well, that may not have anything to do with any of this. Fact is that twos and sixes can be kind of needy, but it isn't. But there are a lot of personality traits that aren't necessarily significant in the Enneagram related that they are any type can be that, but there are some very specifics. Now, the fear type is numbered five, six, and seven. There's no hierarchy in the numbers. They're just like they have names, but they also have these numbers, and there's no eight isn't better than four. So five is the inward fear. They're the observer. These are the nerds that they need to know how things work. That their security, that their fear is overcome by knowing how things work. I sat with a five one time in India, and we were looking at the bridge. I said, well, I was sort of teasing. I said, well, I wonder how they built the bridge. And he said, oh, well, da 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 da. Da. He knew how they built the bridge because he was a five. He had to know how things work. That's how he gets his confidence. The outward focused fear type is the enthusiast. That's me, the seven. We love greener pastures. We love moving on. We have trouble making commitments. We can be the life of the party until the tape loops because we only have a certain amount of material, and we can be the permanent house guest if given a chance. Um, and then the middle, which is the actively neutral, observing before behavior, is the sixth, the loyalist. These are incredibly detail oriented. They have a lot of anxiety. They have a lot of fear. They're always second guessing everything. They're looking for security. The core is to look for security in life. Okay, then the two, threes, and fours are the other ones, the last ones. These are the image types. The two is the helper. That's the outward type. They are the while it's a kind of a feminine position, it can be men. They're the natural mothers. This is the 4-year-old who's taking care of the older kids or the younger kids and maybe the older kids. The mom at a very young age. This is the two, and the men are very helpful oriented. The fours are the inward type. The individualists, these are the creative types. Michael Jackson, Dylan, Whitney Houston. The creative, the models, the beautiful models that don't feel that they're beautiful. These are fours. They're incredibly sensitive, and the way they walk across the room, they know we everybody notices them walking across the room. They're dancers. A lot of them are dancers. The three is the producer. This is the neutral image type. or emotion body type, the producer. This is the three gone wrong is Mad Men. Don Draper is
Yeah.
the three that went bad. Peck's bad boy needs to be creative, needs to be producing, wants to show what they can do, but they're kind of underneath. They don't really know themselves very well, and that they can really hurt people because they're not very grounded in themselves. And so these nine particular stories. The Enneagram is about 60 years. The Enneagram of Personality, which is what this is about 60 years old. The Enneagram itself was given to us 100 years ago by Gurdjieff. Most people don't know him anymore, and that's fine. He died in the 40s, but in the 70s he was still popular, and Meetings with Remarkable Men was a book that he wrote, but he brought the Enneagram to us, but he never told us whether he made it up or whether he got it from somebody. And it has this figure which has 9 points. It has three geometric shapes that combine to form these 9 points. And they put musical notes at the points, they put foods at the points, they put planets at the points. When personalities were put at the points, then the Enneagram of Personality was discovered, and it can be an incredible spiritual tool to be able to release our story completely, and it's also an incredible psychological tool used in psychology and used in movies. There's a lot of books on movies, all the characters and their Enneagram story, and they will talk about a five playing a five, or a five can play anybody, and also just in psychology, that there are people that use the Enneagram as a way to understand your core story. It is not who you are, it's your outward personality. That's why it's in the chart, and the idea is to let go of the core triggers, that these nine, I believe, this is a big statement, that I believe that it unwinds the 5,000 years of conditioned behavior, that all the crappy behavior that's been passed down from generation to generation in the Judeo-Christian tradition can be wiped out by understanding your Enneagram point, by understanding the core triggers as to um, the insecurity of the six, or the inner emptiness of the seven, or the disconnection and the unwillingness to for the nine to appear with full vitality. It's a strategy. They look like they're lazy, but it's a strategy. The strategy is, I'm going to be lazy. It's an actual strategy. And so did one of these or a couple of these maybe ring for you? Did you find yourself in one of these?
Yeah. There was a lot there, but there was one or two where like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I forget which one it was now, to be honest.
Are you
Because
an
at first,
observer? Are you a five that need to know how things work and understand?
to a point, um, but yeah, definitely the observer. I think even I resonated a little bit when you said the anger that was in the middle, that observe
The
before.
nine, the nine that's a peacemaker that disengages from
Yeah,
themselves.
that one. Yeah.
Okay, so did when you were a young kid, did you accommodate other people?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's a nine. Oh yeah, that's a nine. So,
Yeah.
so their problem is that they don't know who they really are, and they make it's a story of peace. I tell this story that I was in a restaurant in India, and it was quiet, and three Americans walk in. It's not against the Americans, but they walk in kind of, needless, unconsciously.
We're a lot louder overseas. I lived overseas for a while too. You always
Yeah,
know when the
yeah. So,
Americans walk
so
in.
they said, so this guy said to me, he said, sorry to disturb peace. I said, you can't disturb peace. I said, you can only disturb the story of peace. And so the story of peace is that if I don't connect to my own feelings, then it'll be okay. So they merge with other people. This is the nine, and they disengage from themselves. And so as a nine, this is a life work.
Hmm. Well, I guess that's my question too, is if you know what your story is and you work on those triggers, are you able to change that story to a different one? Can you go from a nine to a
No,
six?
you
I'm just
don't, you
making,
don't, no, no, no. What you do is you go from a low vibration to a high vibration. So then you become love, that you love everybody, that you love yourself, that you include. I like to say quite often about nines that they love every animal alive or dead, and they have compassion for all people except for one. That's themselves. And so you move from it's not that you want to leave the nine. The nine is your high point. It's your
Mhm.
core way of connecting with life that I it's not that I want to be enthusiastic and BS people, but sevens have an enthusiasm and they can be contagious for other people. We're the only ones that have that. Your peace, nines can breathe in chaos and exhale peace.
Mhm.
And if you're married, your wife knows this, that you come home and the situation, I'm making up a story. The kids
Yeah.
have been a mess, and you get home and you breathe in the chaos and you breathe out peace, and everybody all of a sudden everybody is more relaxed. It's more peaceful that there is a but it's a dis but in doing that you disconnect from yourself, and that is what you have to overcome, and to release the core triggers. It's not that it may still be a trigger, but you learn to have a different reaction to life's events.
That's interesting. Because yeah, and in my work, we look at what we call core woundings. So like core woundings of certain events, so they could be triggers too. And by clearing the energetic imprint of those core wounds out of our energetic field, it allows us to reset and kind of not act the same way we used to. So that's a lot of the work I've been doing for the past many years has been clearing those triggers and
Yes,
those
that's
wounds.
exactly right. But they're core triggers, but they're not about somebody did something to you in this life. My Enneagram astrology teacher was a nine, and he talked about that being in the womb. He was empathic and could remember everything. He would quote lines from movies or books, but because he I forget the word, but he was totally aware of, he could never forget those. But anyways, he was in the womb, and he was nines can be very slow to be born because they don't want to go through the womb. They're consciously, unconsciously, consciously don't want to go through the womb, but he knew that he didn't want to hurt his mom. So he knew this in the womb, and then he gets born and he hurts his mom, and then he has this a core trigger that he has to overcome, is that it's okay that he didn't that she didn't hold it against him, that it wasn't a lack of peace in being born, that this is the natural point of life, and that every mother gladly goes through that. Well, I'm not a mother, seemingly gladly, willingly goes through that pain because of the joy on the other side of seeing their little boy or
Yeah,
girl.
they seem to forget the pain and want to have another baby. So
Yeah, they seem to.
I
Yeah.
tell my wife, I'm like, it couldn't have been that bad if you keep wanting to have more. So
But the point is that he is the nine and he's in the womb knowing that he doesn't want to hurt his mom. And so that's the story, that it's before birth, and it is not from any the coincidence is that the nine is always going to have situations that are going to trigger them, but that's not where the pain, that's not the cause of the pain. The cause of the pain is that we have to have one of these nine stories. And I should say that anything that has personality has an enneagram, and that includes animals. It can include cities and countries.
and so I just want to, on the trigger part. So how would, myself, for example, how would I find out what those core triggers are? Especially if we're talking back in the womb. Like what is a way
Well,
to figure that out?
the core trigger is the disconnection from self. That the unwillingness to fully engage with life with full vitality. That the peace takes care of other people rather than themselves. Does this resonate?
Yeah, it's something I've been working on for many years now.
Yeah,
I
so that's how
feel like
core
I've
it is.
gotten better. Yeah.
So if you're not if you're listening and you're not a nine, you're going to say, "Hey, get over it, guy."
Yeah.
But if you're but if you're, I mean, it's really easy to roll your eyes at somebody else's story, but when you get to your own story, whoa, it just gets you to the core, it gets you in your gut. And so the disconnection from self is that you need to have peace around that lack of peace is upsetting to nine's nervous system. And so you quickly learn to disengage from your own feelings in order to create a feeling of peace. But it's not I mean, at 5 years old or 15 years old or 25 years old, it's okay. But at 35, 45, or 55, 65, it's not peace, because there's a disconnection in yourself that doesn't bring peace. And I want to express that I've been doing that. I've been working with this for more than 25 years. So we fairly quickly got to your number, if that's in
Mhm.
fact your number. And so that's the way it can work. And the work is for you to understand the story on such a deep level that you react when you disengage from yourself, that there's something inside you that pops up and says, no, we don't want to do that, because we're accommodating other people. Accommodating other people is part of the story, and accommodating other people, you're disengaging from yourself. And that doesn't work. By the time you get to be 35, there's it doesn't work particularly well, and there needs to be something else to come along. And so my current wife's a nine, and I told her from the beginning that you need to do what you need to do. Don't She's accommodating to me. She takes incredible care of me, but always is take care of yourself first, because she won't go selfish. That's not a selfish story. That feels like it's selfish, but it's self-aware. It's
Yeah.
a difference. And in helping her to be self-aware, that brings her she becomes I think of her as a delicate flower that blooms beautifully, can bloom in that type of environment.
Now, would you find that you kind of touched on it with your first wife once you realized what each person's story was? Are there some stories that just you find aren't compatible once you realize the other person?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. The reality of it is that all of them are kind of icky on the low side. So the question
Hmm.
is what do you want to put up with? You want to put up with the anxiety of the six. The sixes are can be very attractive, but they are totally they're always worried about something, and they see problems in everything, and you can get really burnt out with that. But I mean, the perfectionist of the one, it's beautiful on the high side. Like Gandhi may be a one. Beautiful on the high side. On the low side is somebody that's critiquing you all the time. So they all have high sides and low sides. Like I tell this story sometimes, a made up story, that your partner is the most beautiful woman, man that there is. They're always on time. They were rich and happy to share whatever they have. They're totally groomed all the time. They're happy for you to do whatever you need to do. If you want to go play golf, fine, go play. And then eventually you're going to get pissed off because the hair is never out of place. They never have a harsh word. Make a mistake, will you? I mean, you can get, no matter how perfect something is or someone is, and it's your dream, you're still going to find fault with it at some point because it's too because of our own insecurities that it's we want people to be human with us. And so the reality of it is that there are combinations. Sixes and nines get together, twos and sevens get together, sevens and nines get together. I mean, there are more common examples where two sevens and nines are positive outlook. So they
Hmm.
kind of find each other because they're all positive outlook group. But the fact is that anybody can get along with anybody. There are some natural patterns that people will combinations that will come up more often, but any combination can work.
Interesting. And I would think too, knowing your children's numbers too, that would help you be able to deal with them a little bit better and understand perhaps where they're coming from, because we never got that manual we were promised when we had kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that if you like, for example, if you're all extroverts and you've got that one introvert, that's a hard thing to pick up. And if you're the one extrovert in a family of introverts, that's also can be very difficult. Not that introvert or extrovert there's anything wrong with any of them, but the nature of it is that if your family, sometimes there'll be a lot of commonality in the family, and sometimes there won't. Uh, my kids were my wife and I were both more extroverted, and our kids were all more introverted or neutral, not extroverted. And I don't know that that was a problem. It might have been a difference in style, but these kinds of things can be really helpful. That what you can take as a real a problem and can be really unclear can be clarified. Simply by knowing the numbers and knowing the stories of your kids, especially when they're very different.
And so to get these numbers, you just need the same information you'd use for a birth chart. So just the
No,
name, birth
no.
location.
Actually, I use it with astrology, but I'm one of the few that do this. There's a test. There are a couple
Okay.
of tests that you can. Well, there are many tests that you can take. They're generally multiple choice, and they're trying to figure out whether you're introverted, extroverted, or neutral. And they're interested in whether there's fear, anger, or image or emotion at your core because of the nature of the personalities. They have like if somebody says I'm a dancer, then people will say, oh, I think you might be a four, because the dancers are fours. That doesn't mean that other people aren't dancing, but there are some commonalities, and so they look for some patterns in these. There are simpler versions of that. I use some simple tests that people can take, and the reality of it is that some people will never figure out their Enneagram. A very few number that it is so convoluted that it's very difficult. Most of people will, you kind of like if you're a nine, we kind of came to that fairly quickly, and nines and fives can be very confusing. They're both inward. The nine is more, the five is more the fear and is more intellectual. Einstein was a nine, but a lot of people, I think, but a lot of people thought he was a five. So this five and nine it can be quite confusing, even when you're been doing this a long time. It really comes for a person to type themselves. I mean, I will give suggestions, but I don't really. I mean, I may say strongly that I think you're a certain number, only to try to convince them, but not to. But their opinion is the true opinion because we never really know what's at the core.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that because yeah, the five was the always trying to figure things out and knowing
Yeah.
things. Yeah, so I do resonate a little bit on that one too, because it's like before I do something, I want to at least walk through it a couple of times first and make sure I'm doing it the right way or understanding how to do it, especially if it's something new I've never done before. But the peacemaker one, at least for me, resonates more, right?
Okay. Okay, so
So it's
there's a couple things here that raises. First of all, we have the family, like if your mom or your dad or your brother was a five or is a five, then that, then you might have some of that in you, that you might have a
hmm,
training from your dad. The five is, check out to make sure you can do it first, but that isn't your core story, that's their core stories. So quite often if people will type themselves away, I want to make sure that to find out if that a parent or is that you. That's one thing, and second of all, anger. Is it anger? So it's a repressed anger that the nine has is anger at the core, but they don't recognize that because they will not never allow themselves to go. Going postal is nine. You
yeah,
know,
it's well, it
okay. Can you see that? Because they hold on to it and they hold on to it and they hold on to it, and then eventually they
turns into
explode.
resentment and anger, and then like, why don't you notice? And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so the nine anger will come out later. The story, one of the stories that I heard, decades ago was that the guy asked the nine lady, "Where do you want to go eat?" And the nine says, "Well, I don't know," you know. And the nine says, "Well, how about we go back to Chinese?" And she says, "Well, okay." But she hates Chinese, and so now it's sitting in her stomach for 3 days that she ate the Chinese, and she's pissed off that she once again accommodated somebody, and then she yells at the postman or the newspaper guy or the butcher, whoever it is, because she's, because he ticked her off, but it's really still, you relate to this?
Kind of, yeah. Not
I mean, and go
necessarily
back,
yelling.
maybe not
Yeah,
so much now, but
yeah,
go back 10 or 15 or 20, 30 years.
yeah. And that's the hard part too. Is after being in the military, I had to deal with a lot of PTSD as well. So it's like it all gets blurred at some point. But
Okay.
and for a while, I was living more on my own for many years, so I didn't really have to deal with too many people. So it's, but yeah, I would think a lot of that, doing things for others, the resentment of it for sure. But then I also grew up in a household where we were very disconnected too. So I think that was a part of it as well. Like not just disconnected from ourselves, but just the family in general, right? Because
Okay, so
so
this is the thing is that I don't know, if you had a brother or your sister
I had a
and they're
sister.
the assertive type, they don't feel that same disconnection.
But yep, no, they don't.
Okay, so they if they're a 3, 7, and 8 and they just go for it, they don't, they never heard the mom and the dad. You're the peacemaker, you accommodate. So if the mom and dad says we're going to be blue at night, and all you're thinking about is being blue, but the 3, 7, and 8 is going to say, I don't want to hear, I didn't hear it, and I don't care. I'm going to go red all day. And so they hear completely different things. It's
Hmm.
really interesting that the one time I talked with an old buddy of mine that we roomed together right after college, and we remembered completely different things, which is kind of normal. But oh, you remember when no, I don't remember that. You remember when no, I don't remember that. We remember completely different things, but sort of growing up in the same environment,
Yeah.
the children's reactions is completely different. Why? Because they have a different Enneagram story going on, and they're triggered by different things. And if they're told, if they're assertive and they're told no, then they're just not going to hear it and they're not going to listen to it.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, and you see that all the time. Even I think they even said like with the police officers when they're questioning two witnesses that were on the same scene, it's like they're going to get completely different stories. And so even taking eyewitness accounts of a lot of things, they can't really hold in court because you just see what you want to see in that moment or whatever you're more attracted to see in that moment. There's a video online where it's like these kids are, I think they're passing a ball or something, and the caption says, count how many times they pass the ball. And while you're focused on that, there's a guy in a monkey suit walking behind them. And 9 out of 10 people never see the guy in the monkey suit because they're
Uh-huh.
so focused on the ball. They just don't see what's in the background.
Yeah, well, this is a beautiful example, and the idea here is that these nine particular stories that somehow they've been figured out, and somehow this is the way that we're set up, and it's beyond human nature because animals will have the characteristics, and I was on a conference, a online conference last week, and the head of it, I was sort of playing this game, and I thought, oh, maybe she's a seven. I've been doing this a while. I thought maybe she's a seven. Well, it turns out she finally said she's a one. So something I haven't told you is that we go to we have a coping strategy, which is the wings, where the nines go to one, that the
Hmm.
number on either side, you go to eight or you go to one. So you go to resentment and frustration. We also have a number we go to in stress, and we have a number we go in relaxation. One goes to seven in relaxation. She's relaxed doing this workshop that what did she say, the 14th one or something. She's nervous because it needs to be perfect because she's a one, but she's also kind of, she said early on, she said that she's an introvert, but she comes out in this. Well, she did seven, and I could feel seven, but she's not a seven, she's a one. And so that's ones go to a four in stress and seven in relaxation. I got her in relaxation, and that's what I was feeling. I tend to feel what people put out, not necessarily the core. I don't always find the core, but I tend to relate to what the energy that I'm feeling, which could be one of these five personas. There's your core, there's the two wings, and then there's um, your stress and your relaxation place. And every number has the same pattern, goes to the same numbers. It's incredible that nines will go to six in stress, and they will become brain fog and unable to they will get into their head where they're never in their head, but they get into their head in stress, and then they can't make a decision because it's like a hamster wheel spinning. And then in relaxation, they'll go to three where they become productive. They'll go to one in as a coping strategy, which will be the perfectionist. And I always talk to the ladies that they have around the kitchen, that you got to do it right in the kitchen when they get stressed. That things in the kitchen have to be the right way. The vegetables have to be cut the right way. The dishes have to be washed the right way. I don't usually wash a pot and pan. Well, I can wash a couple for there. A few pots and pans have been cleared for me to wash, but most of them, because I don't know the right way, I don't usually wash a pot and pan. And if I ask my wife, most likely she'll say, just leave it. She can tell me and I'll clean it, but mostly she'll say, just leave it, which is our way. That's harmony. Because she can feel peace that it'll be cleaned the way that she wants it to be, because that's the most important thing to her, that it needs to be done the right way, because she's if she's triggered, a little bit triggered, then it needs to be done the right way. And that's, it's not that it's not love in that, but it's just let's do it the right way. And I don't feel a lack of capability. I leave it to her to be fair in whether it's above my pay grade or not, and we have fun with it because it's not personal. It's like, I'm happy to leave it if you want me to leave it. If you want me to wash it, just tell me the right way.
There's- And I guess with that, I wanted to kind of switch topics, but I'm curious if there's some overlap because, we have talked a little bit about astrology and how you use the Enneagrams with it as well. But I kind of wanted to touch on the location astrology. I've
Sure.
heard a lot about it, not necessarily too much. My short understanding is based upon your chart, with your houses and everything, that kind of defines an overview of you. And then by doing the same for different locations, you can kind of see which areas are good for business, family, life in general. And then if you move to these locations, it's supposed to help make those areas better in whichever specific spot you're trying to work on. Is that
Yes,
close?
that's
Okay.
basically it. It's called astrocartography. We also call it location astrology. And the part that you haven't done is that they develop software to take your chart and to be able to project it onto the planet. And so there are lines that are created on in this chart on the planet on a picture of the Earth. The lines are based on your particular chart. The lines are there are four lines per planet, and they are 0 degree said to be the most important, the most powerful point on the chart. I never heard this before location, but 0 degrees first. 0 degrees is the part, is said to be the most powerful point. First house, fourth house, seventh house, and 10th house. That's not surprising. 0 degrees is a little surprising. And then these lines are the place of intensity for those particular planets. Now, the question is that we say, let's say Jupiter. So Jupiter is about expansion. Jupiter is about luck. Jupiter is about generosity. Now, if you have a good Jupiter, then you can handle the excuse me, the energy of that line on the planet. But if you don't have a good Jupiter, then that place can be a little bit too intense. And so the generic is that people think that the lines are good and so move there. But the fact is that they aren't. For a nine, you may want to move away from all the lines because you want to be able to have quieter space. Uh, you want to live where it's quieter. Quieter meaning not neighbor noise, but quieter in terms of the planetary energy. That I call it's like being at a mountaintop. There are times in your life when you want to live at a mountaintop, move away from your lines. If there's times that you want to be, you want to, go out at night and you want to meet people and you want to get your career going, you might kind of move to a city. Well, it doesn't have to be a city, but the going to the active lines. You see how I'm making a connection
Yeah.
between the energy of a city and the energy of the lines. Not saying it's the same. I'm not saying that everybody needs to move to a city. It's not about that. It's just about that it's an energetic center that can be very helpful for you. And you want to check this out because you don't want too many lines. Too many lines is too much energy. Nobody can do well with too much energy. Conflicting lines and a lot of crossing lines. It's just too much energy. So we look at the chart in order to find the good places. And then the third aspect here, which you sort of brought out, is that you can create a relocation chart. So we take our natal chart and then we create a relocation chart for the your moment of birth, but only this new location. And what happens is that the planets are in the same degree, in the same sign, but the whole thing turns like the old rotary phone dial, and so your houses will change. So your planets will change houses, and so like if you have a 12th house planet, which 12th house is ethereal energy up here, and you're disconnected, and you like it's a sun, so you're disconnected from yourself. Nines can have a 12th house sun isn't doesn't mean a nine, but quite often you might have a 12th house sun as being or 12th house Mars because your anger, you're disconnected from your anger. 12th house Mars, 12th house Sun can be kind of nine-ish. And so what happens is if you move to a place where they're now in the first house, so they're now in the 10th house, very different energy. And so we create a relocation chart for the moment of your birth. We put in the time of your moment of your birth, but that time for the new location, and we put the place as your new location. And so the whole the whole wheel will turn. And so why do we do better when we move? Well, we get out of our natal energies. Again, just to pick it simple, a 12th house energy. Now you move halfway around the world, and now it's in the seventh house or the sixth house. Let's say seventh house partner relationship, and all of a sudden, you're meeting a lot of people, and you're connecting with a lot of people, and you're a social butterfly that you never were before. That's the nature of living in this relocation chart.
Okay, that makes sense. Because yeah, I was curious how you would tie it in with the Enneagram, but that makes sense
So
knowing
how I tie it
both
in with the
sides.
Enneagram is just it isn't really directly related to the Enneagram, but in the Enneagram, let's say again, since this seems to be a nine theme, so I'm looking at a disconnected sun. I'm looking at a not very happy sun because you don't know who you are. I'm not saying you, but as
There,
a nine, you don't know who you are. You're disconnected from the Mars because you have trouble expressing your anger, and so I look at those the placement of those planets, and then where do they move into the relocation? Well, example I already gave you is if you move that while they're not your happy planets and they may be a little bit triggered, they may move into a place where they can like maybe they move from 10th house to 12th house, and you might like that better because now all of a sudden you're not being really confronted with those energies. 10th house is the place of the noon sun. Everybody can see that you feel insecure, Sun and Mars in the 12th. Now all of a sudden, in the 10th, now all of a sudden it moves to the 12th, or it moves to the 4th or something, and it's more inward, and you can, rather than being so exposed, you can feel very exposed in one place and not so exposed in another place because these planets are moving to houses that are that are reflective of different energy. And depending on your Enneagram, I would bring that discussion in as to which of the planets are. Some of the planets are very neutral and aren't really part of the conversation. But the strong planets and the weak planets are the ones to really watch to see where they move. The extrovert may not matter because they're extroverted everywhere, but the introvert can really feel very exposed, and maybe they get to an age where they want to be feel a little bit more exposed and be more seen. You get to your 50s, and it's these are game changers in terms of wanting to see life and live life at different ways.
okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, that's why I was curious of the connection, but that no, that does make perfect sense. Because I've dabbled a little bit with location astrology, but I haven't. I'm not an expert by any means. So I was just curious about, well,
Absolutely.
especially when I saw it on your website with, mapping it with the Enneagram. I'm like, okay, let me. I want to definitely ask that question.
I'll tell you one thing that I find with the location astrology is that most of the clients, well, they come to me because they have problems, and the problems can be around place to live. But unfortunately, most people want the place to live to be the first thing. The place to live is the last thing. Why? Because if you take your baggage with you, if you take your insecurities and your stories with you, then it's not going to it probably won't be any better. Yes, there will be a different setup, but you're gonna learn to run your own BS
Yeah.
wherever you are in order to not look at your stuff. And so really the location is the last thing, not the first thing. And I find for quite a few people, the location becomes not really important. That whether I'm in India or not, it doesn't really matter anymore because going for 25 years, I'm in India wherever I am. It's not really any different for me. Yes, of course, living in California is like different things are accessible than they are in India, but they also cost more, and so it has pluses and minuses. But I'm kind of the same after 25 years. I'm kind of the same either way. 4 months a year in India, it doesn't seem to really matter, though that my India chart is it's wonderful because it's halfway, it's 180 degrees from where when I was born in New York, and different things come out. It's really wonderful to have different things come out and different abilities and in different places in the world. The traveling is not only we change not only because because the well, the places are different, but the fact is that our charts are different, and the energies that are there are different than where we are, where we were born.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times too, moving's not going to solve, like you're saying, moving's not going to solve all your problems, especially if you're bringing everything with you. It'll distract you for a little while, but just because your chart says, I'm just making up a location, Phoenix, Arizona is the best place for you financially.
Yeah.
If you don't have the skills to get the right kind of job that are available there, that's not going to help you either. So,
Well, that's and most people don't look at it that way, but yes, that's part of it is true, and the fact is that you haven't really solved the problem of why the finances aren't working.
yeah.
Yes, you can get to a more, you want I remember we always used to when we went to Hawaii, we always used to enjoy pineapples, but you find that they're more expensive there, not less expensive. And so I mean, things are the way that they are. That doesn't mean that you're gonna, get the freshest fruit in the places where they're grown.
Yeah. And before we start wrapping it up, I wanted to give you a chance to, if you want to expand a little bit more about your book that just came out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Indra's Net, the just
I'll
a
make sure
second.
it's in the show notes too for people.
They get the cover. Indra's Net, A
Nice.
Seeker's Guide to the Human Experience. This is Indra's Net is thousands of years old. It's not me. I'm named after it. I've had the spiritual name for more than almost 30 years, but Indra's Net is a Hindu and Buddhist concept of the interconnectedness of all life. That Indra, the god Indra, the king of the gods Indra, had a net that covered the whole universe, and in this net were hanging faceted jewels. And this is the faceted jewel here at the bottom. That's a faceted jewel of this Indra's net. And each faceted jewel reflects every other jewel. It's a concept of the interconnectedness of all life. So what I've done is to write 78 themes on different aspects of spiritual life, and they're very easy to read, and they're fun, and they're not particularly preachy, but the idea is to take you to sort of presents a problem and then kind of gives you some solutions in it, and it's put into a tarot card format. 78 themes, 78 cards. It's not a hierarchical tarot. It's the highest energy of a tarot, but it ordered the themes, and it gave meaning to the themes, and it gave meaning, and the themes gave meaning to the cards, to the tarot cards, and each one has a photo, a caption, the theme, which is 600 to 1200 words, and then the leveling up part where there's exercises and lessons and the next step and an affirmation and a higher octave and takes you deeper into the subject matter in a way to promote change. And so just reading, some people will use it and refer to it when they have open it up. You can just open it up and read a theme. You can take a tarot deck and pick a card and read a theme. You can read it cover to cover, like one a day, and just sit with it, and maybe the next day you do it again. and 10, 15 minutes a day, and I guarantee you at the end you won't be the same because it's a higher vibration that you're sitting with, and it's not about sitting in the problem, it's about sitting in solutions. The solutions are to let go, to let be, to to accept things as they are, to open your heart. These are the
Yes.
common themes among all of them. Always open your heart.
It almost sounds like you should make a deck of cards to go with the book so that you could actually just shuffle the card, almost like an oracle deck. And you
Well,
just like pick a
I've thought
card for
about
the day.
that, obviously. Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but yes. The tarot is you don't have to know any tarot. It's not really about the tarot, but it's used
Yeah.
as a format to try to put order to these themes, and they are can be used. The book can be used for divination. It can be used to find solutions, and you don't really have to pull a deck or even know anything about it. You can just use the opportunity. The reality is that. What we need to know comes to us.
Nice.
The themes, the essays themselves, the themes themselves are based on my experiences. They're based on travels. They're based on been to 56 countries. They're based on ancient Indian teachings. They're based on sessions with clients, things that people have said, and mostly just the things that come up, in a session, and people's insecurities and problems, and so it's very it's timely. I don't think it's timeless. It's not only timely, but it's timeless because these are things that will always be true on some level. And I think it's one of these. It's a book that has spirals that when you read it, if you're new to this whole thing and you read it, you'll get a certain level of understanding in it. And as you grow with it, if you pick it up again in a year or 5 years or 10 years, I would imagine you're going to hear stuff, you're going to read stuff and understand stuff that you didn't before, because there's a lot of levels to it. I like to say the book came is not from me but through me, that there's the divinity has touched every part of this book and almost every word. If there was something that divinity wanted to change, it told me its own way.
Nice. So I hope people check it out
Available
again.
on Amazon and through Ingram, through your local bookstore.
I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes too for people so they can just click
Okay,
right
thank
on it.
you.
And then with that, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want to like book a session with you, get
Sure.
their Enneagram created, all that good stuff?
So yeah, I have a website, Indra Rinzler at .com. You can email me at indrarinzler@gmail.com. I offer to your listeners I have two free gifts. I will
Nice.
send you an Enneagram test for free. Just write me. And if you want your astrology chart, I'm a Vedic astrologer, the astrology of India. I will send you your chart. It's not a free reading, but I always make a comment. Send me birth date, time, and place, indrarinzler@gmail.com, and I will send you back your chart almost immediately and make a few comments. And if you want a session, the sessions are they're explained on the website. I have a lot of different kinds of ways that I offer these modalities. It's the reading is based on making you aware of what the stories are that are going on around you. I contend that awareness is enough to start making changes. Of course, you have to have discipline, and you need to work with you need to learn to be conscious, and these things will happen over time. Let me give you this last part. This is the I like to say at the end of the reading, people say, "Well, this is great information, Indra. Now, what do I do with it?" Well, here's what divinity gave me to do with it. I call it the four doorways to conscious living. The first doorway is that we have to learn to observe. We have to be conscious of our own thinking and behavior. We need to be conscious of our reactions to other people's thinking and behavior. We need to watch our reactions to situations. We need to watch our reactions to other people's reactions to situations. We need to get out of the movie of our life into the audience to create an objectivity about learning to observe our own thinking and behavior and to watch ourselves and see how we react disconnected from the being in the story. We need to get out of the stories to have we're really clear on what other people need to do. We need to learn how to get some of that clarity for ourselves. That's the first doorway. Learn to observe. Then you need to let go and anything that doesn't serve. Okay. So letting go involves being aware of a feeling, letting it come up, staying with it, and letting it run its course without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. It means simply to let the feeling be there and to focus on letting out the energy behind it. When letting go, ignore all thoughts. And I do like to recommend a book called Letting Go by David Hawkins. Any book by David Hawkins I recommend. The third doorway is to love ourselves. And the fourth doorway is to live in the moment. So if we live in the moment, we love ourselves. How do we love ourselves? By letting go and releasing anything that doesn't serve. It's ice. If ice cream is serving you now, then keep eating ice cream. But if there are other things that you're doing or eating or being that don't serve you, then it's time to let them go. How do we know what to let go? By learning to observe. Life will tell us what it is that we're attached to. The more observant that we become, the more aware we become. And I had this discussion on a recent podcast. The most difficult is the letting go. That the observing takes some skill, and can rather quickly miniature golf isn't so hard. Regular golf is a bit harder. That is letting go, learning to let go and release, because there's so many levels to it. Sure, there's some things we can let go right away, but there's always more and more levels and more pain associated with it and disconnection. And so we are continually letting go. And when we let go enough, then we start loving ourselves. And when we let go more, then we love ourselves more. And as we learn to love ourselves, then we're living in the moment. And in the moment, nothing can really touch us because it comes and goes so quickly that we're just moment to moment.
I like that. Yeah, letting go is the harder one for a lot. I mean, even for myself, for a lot of things too. I'm not gonna act like I'm perfect for sure, but letting go is the harder one. Observing can be challenging. It's really more being honest with yourself and actually, but then it's like, okay, now you see it, you're observing it. What do you do about it? That's always the big challenge for people. It's, what are
Well,
you
there's
going to do
nothing
about
to
it
do
now?
about it but let it go, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you're, if your head is pointed, your head is pointed. What can you do? You got a pointed head. That's it. So just let it go. Just be who you are and dig up on it and appreciate have gratitude, It comes down to gratitude for what we have and what we don't have. So yeah.
Nice. I like that. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This was a lot of fun. I could have kept going for another hour easily on the on the Enneagrams. There's a lot there I need to look into.
Very good.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if something our guests shared resonated with you, connect out to them. That's what these stories are here for. And if you're looking for deeper healing or support, you can always find me at pnwshamanichealing.com. See you in the next episode.